All right. Welcome back, everybody. It is currently 9:29 p.m. Central Time, Thursday, February 5th. Um, Super Bowl show. Not going to spend too much time today. Um, Not a lot to talk about besides the big game and the Pro Football Hall of Fame stuff. Anyone watch the Pro Bowl? I know I didn't. I didn't even know it was on. Was it really Tuesday night? Let me look that up real quick. I thought it would have been on Sunday, but I thought I saw that it was played. Let's look up the Pro Bowl. Oh my gosh, it was played on a Tuesday. I had no idea. I had no idea the Pro Bowl was even on. Just shows how far off that game has fallen. So, anyway, Super Bowl show. I'm not going to spend too much time. Going to try not to spend too much time on it tonight. But time to break it down the matchup and give my Super Bowl pick. Tried to get James on the podcast twice this week, and stuff came up for him. We probably could have done it Saturday, but I got my college roommate coming in and visiting, so don't want to podcast with him here. Uh, Even though he lives in Houston, I want to give him some attention. Anyway, so Super Bowl 60 between the New England Patriots and the Seattle Seahawks. Where is my there the I was looking for my mic and there it was in the corner. I thought for whatever reason it wasn't showing up in my video. Anyway, so Super Bowl 60, New England and Seattle. I look at this matchup. Well, before I get into the matchup, I want to talk about both teams. I think the biggest storyline going into this game is Sam Darnold. I think that feels like the main talking point right now. And I think it is the best story going into this draft. You're talking about a guy who, lit it up in college, was supposed to be the number one overall pick, and fell to number three, went to the Jets, struggled mightily with the Jets to the point where they got rid of him, dumped him to Carolina, and I will say this, he was better in Carolina. Like, you saw improvement, but he still wasn't very good. And Carolina moved on, and he goes to San Francisco, where at this point, I think everyone had given up on him. He was going to be a backup. And I remember, I think it was even John Middlecoff saying, because he's close with the Niners, he's from that area, he's a kind of a Niners fan. And I remember him saying, like, hey, watch out for Darnold to win this starting job. And he ended up not doing that. They stuck with Purdy, obviously, but that opinion of his has aged well because he goes to Minnesota. Minnesota gives him a shot. He does very well in Minnesota, and now they look dumb for moving on. And now he's in Seattle, and Seattle's in the Super Bowl. So I've always liked Sam Darnold. I was a Sam Darnold guy. If you remember back in the early days of this podcast, you can probably find it. James and I, obviously, we love Josh Allen, and we still do. That was our guy in that draft. But my guy, aside from Josh Allen, was Sam Darnold. I believed in Sam Darnold, and he seems like a good dude. I'm happy for him. I will admit that I gave up my Sam Darnold stock at one point. Uh, but I'm happy to see that my opinion has aged pretty well on Darnold. I've always believed in him, and he's delivering. And now he's a win away from being immortalized as a Super Bowl champion. So I am rooting for the Seahawks, I suppose, in this game, but mostly for Sam Darnold. Seattle, I mean, I'll get to the Patriots here in a minute, but Seattle done a really good job this in the offseason. I mean, getting Darnold and then hiring Kubiak, like a first year starting quarterback and a first year offensive coordinator, that typically has growing pains in the NFL. And like that's the two of them have meshed really well. And uh, it like been exactly what the Seahawks needed. Their offense has been great. They've been balanced. And then Mike McDonald's done a great job at their defense. So they've done and then they hit a home run of a draft. If you go look at their draft, I mean, they're really well run. What I find interesting is both of these teams have their front offices are rooted like from the Packers and specifically Ron Wolf. Uh, John Schneider used to work in Green Bay. Now is the GM of has been the GM of the Seahawks for a long time. Then you have Elliot Wolf, son of Ron Wolf, who's the GM of the Patriots. Although some reports there say that someone else, I forget who, but someone else in that front office is running the show and boys with Vrabel, which I could believe. But I just find that interesting. So Seahawks did a really good job, 1 year turnaround for a team that was good last year, won 10 games, just missed the playoffs, and now they're in the Super Bowl. Just a really good job done by Mike McDonald. I don't think he's gotten enough credit for the way this team has played. Then you have the Patriots, who, tonight was NFL Honors, and Vrabel won Coach of the Year. I don't have a problem with that. Vrabel has won Coach of the Year before, I believe, um, but he's done an incredible job with this team. They were a 4-win team last year, and we're very busy this offseason. Had a top 5 pick in the draft. Obviously drafted Drake May the previous year, and they go from 4 wins to I think 14 wins this year, and then now in the AFC representative in the Super Bowl. Just that's a really good job by Vrabel. I mean, obviously, but I think they have a chance to be like the fourth team ever to have a go from a losing season to winning the Super Bowl. It hasn't happened very much. I think I have a list somewhere. Let me look. Uh, I have a list of every single Super Bowl matchup because I'm a nerd. So there have been. Oh wait, this isn't the spreadsheet. Um, Nope, that's not it either. Give me a minute. Okay. There have been one, two, three, 4 teams. Oh, sorry. Okay. So the Patriots have a chance to be the fifth team to do this. Go from a losing season to winning the Super Bowl. The other four are the Bucks in 2020, mostly because they signed Brady. The Eagles in 2017, uh, had a losing season in 2016 and then won the Super Bowl 2017. And then the 2001 Patriots, oddly enough, with Brady. And then the 99 Rams, greatest show on turf, had a losing season the previous year of winning the Super Bowl. So that would be quite the accomplishment for the Patriots. So let's get into the matchup. I think we have some pretty good storylines going into this season. So hang on, let me return some text real quick. Dead air. Okay. So as for the matchup itself, um, I went into this game like as soon as the conference championships were over, and I went ahead. I'm gonna go ahead and no, I'm not gonna reveal my pick just yet. I look at this matchup, and obviously it starts in the trenches, and I think Seattle has the advantage in the trenches. Although I will say I do have some reservations about the Seahawks offensive line. They've kind of struggled in the playoffs. Not a large sample size, but they've allowed, I think, 5 sacks in 2 games. Didn't run the ball particularly well in the NFC Championship, which was a bit of a surprise for me. But as much reservations as I have about the Seahawks offensive line, I have even more reservations about the Patriots offensive line, which has really struggled in the playoffs. They've allowed, I believe, 15 sacks and 14 quarterback hits in 3 games. And on paper, they've run the ball pretty well, but in terms of yards per carry, they're probably not that high. I don't know what the number is. I think it's in the high threes, like 3.7, 3.8 yards per carry. Not super effective, but able to get the job done. And part of the reason why they've been effective in the run game, while I'm willing to say they've been effective in the run game, is because Vrabel's just been willing to commit to it. And I look at this matchup and I think New England's going to have a really hard time against Seattle. Seattle's defense has been excellent against both the run and the pass. They rank, I know for sure, I think like top 3 in run defense, and their pass defense or was in the regular season. Let me pull it up real quick. Come on, ESPN sucks. Uh, their Seattle's run defense was third. Their pass defense was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10th. So they were top 10 in both. And Nick Eamon has gotten some news getting hurt. I assume he'll be fine. You know, it's the Super Bowl, but I think the Patriots are going to have a really hard time keeping Drake May upright. They've already struggled against some really good pass rush. Uh, the Chargers don't even have that good of a pass rush, and they were able to get to May. The Patriots, the Texans got to May quite a bit. The Broncos got to May quite a bit, and I don't see any reason why the Seahawks won't be able to do the same thing. I think the Patriots will struggle to keep May upright, and if they can't keep him upright, I think it could be a long day for them because James has talked about this before in the Super Bowl, specifically when the Eagles and Chiefs played the 2 times that they've played in the last 5 years. I see only a maybe one way for the Patriots to win this game, whereas I see multiple ways the Seahawks can win this game. The Seahawks are the more complete team. They are more complementary. They're more balanced. They just are much better in several different areas. Like to the point, I just don't know where in this matchup New England can exploit Seattle. Their best chance is if Drake May puts on the Superman cape and goes off. And he really hasn't shown that in the playoffs, but he did in the regular season where he was playing, where he did play at a high level at numerous times in the regular season. So we know he has it in him. Can the Patriots keep him upright? I sincerely doubt it. Now, can they run the ball effectively? Sure. Seattle might even dare them to run the ball and just, or not dare, like, might settle for them running the ball well. I don't know. But and try to keep May limited because the Patriots aren't very dynamic. Like their offense, like it relies a lot on a run game and then May doing something special. I just don't think Stephon Diggs is the player he used to be. And who's their tight end? Is it Hunter Henry? I've already forgotten. Or I make a fool of myself. Let me make sure. Yeah, I mean Keyshawn Butte and Ramondre Stevenson's their second best pass catcher in the playoffs. Hunter Henry, Stephon Diggs, Matt Collins. That's just not a great group. It's not. And I think that's why they need to keep May upright, and I just don't know if they can do it. If he doesn't have time, I think this could be a long day. And then on the other side of the ball, New England's defense has been really good in the playoffs, like stupid good. I was looking at their numbers. It's like I wrote about it on my blog. They're averaging 8.6 points. They're allowing 8.6 points per game, 3.3 yards allowed per play, 71.3 rushing yards per game, 3.1 yards allowed per carry. And then they've also tallied 12 sacks and 8 turnovers in the playoffs. Like those are stupid good numbers, and I just don't think it's sustainable. I think that New England has benefited definitely in the playoffs, but I might as well go ahead and say the whole year. They've had one of the weakest strength of schedules I've ever seen. Although I'm sure Patriots fans are going to scoff at me. This is the lowest opponent's win percentage. I'm sorry, second lowest opponent's win percentage by a division champion in the last 25 years. And it's the first time and only time that a team with this low of an opponent's win percentage has appeared in the Super Bowl, let alone win it. So you look at that and you're like, well, they have an inflated record. But then you look at the playoffs and their path just lined up perfectly for them, where they got an indoor team in the first round and Foxborough. I don't think the weather was a huge factor, but it wasn't warm in Foxborough at that time, and they benefited from that. Then they got another indoor team in the divisional round where weather was a factor in the Texans, and they took care of business, but it was another break. And then they get to the AFC Championship, and guess what? Denver's down to a backup quarterback, and weather's also a factor. And team with the better quarterback ended up winning when the other team had a backup. Shocker. So I look at New England and I think their record's inflated. I think that some of their statistical categories, where they're ranked in certain stats, is a little overrated because of who they've played. Uh, their path was incredibly easy to get to. I mean, it's never easy to get to the Super Bowl, but I mean, you just look at this and you're like, man, I'm not sure in a given year. I highly doubt they make it to this point. If this is last year, the previous year, the Patriots might not even make the playoffs, let alone get to the Super Bowl. They've just had a really favorable path. Everything has lined up for them to get to this point. Not, I don't know the last time this happened where a team, like everything has fallen into place for a team to make a run at the Super Bowl. Um, and I do believe in the philosophy that if you get to the Super Bowl, you can win it. Obviously, like this isn't college football or college basketball where a Cinderella team gets, specifically college basketball, where a Cinderella team gets to the Final Four and runs out of gas. I don't think that's happening in the NFL. I expect the Patriots to show up and to make this a game, because it's the fucking Super Bowl. But that is in the back of my mind. Like I think there's a real opportunity for this game to get out of hand. And I think the Patriots are very fortunate to be in this position, and yeah, there's a real chance I think they get exposed, and this game gets ugly quick, and things go downhill fast. Because I don't have that opinion of Seattle. I've said numerous times on this podcast the last few weeks, Seattle has been on another level since beating the Rams in Week 16 and that crazy comeback in the second half, and then they've taken care of business the other two games of the regular season, and then they handled San Francisco, and then they beat the Rams again in a shootout. So I, I think Seattle separated themselves as the team to beat since that Week 16 game. They have a balanced offense. Sam Darnold's playing at a really high level. Uh, let's look at his numbers in the playoffs. He is completing almost 70% of his throws, averaging 8.8 yards per pass attempt. He's thrown 4 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, and has a passer rating of 119.3. Like, I've only seen a handful of quarterbacks play that well in the playoffs. I don't remember the last time I saw something like this. Like, even though like the sample size hasn't been that much, he's played 2 games, and I think he's thrown the ball 3 times or something. Like we don't have a large sample size, but it reminds me quite a bit of Joe Flacco in 2012, where like good luck slowing that dude down. And I think Seattle, like I just think Seattle's a wagon right now, and this could be a close game. The Patriots could surprise me. I think Seattle wins. I think Seattle covers. Um, I just don't know where in this matchup New England's able to exploit. I think that they are overhyped a little bit because of who they've played and their path to get to this point. I don't think their defense has played as well as the numbers I rattled off earlier. I mean, 3.3 yards allowed per play. That's stupid, especially in the NFL. Like the college team, Ohio State's probably not going to do that against an FCS school. Just ridiculous. So yeah, that's going to be my pick. I'm going Seahawks. Honestly, when the championship games ended a couple weeks ago, I penciled in the Seahawks as my winner, and I haven't wavered. The closer we get to this game, the more I think Seattle is the better team. Coaching, probably even. I might give the advantage to Vrabel, but the Patriots just, again, here I am talking about the Patriots again. I don't think their roster's good enough. I question their offensive line. They don't have very many dynamic pass catchers. I think their pass rush is pretty good. I think they have some good players in the secondary. Obviously, their defense has played well, but and Vrabel's a really good coach. I just don't think this team is there yet. And things have fallen into place where now all of a sudden they just keep winning, and all of a sudden you do a double take and they're in the Super Bowl. Just it's been one of those years. Like I the only team that I thought, well, I don't know if I thought that about Buffalo, but the only team that I thought from the AFC that probably could give a team a run for its money in the NFC is Jacksonville or Buffalo. I never really bought into Denver. I never really bought into New England. Um, so I always thought this was the NFC's year, and I'm not wavering on it. I think Seattle's the better team. They're well coached. They have the more complementary team. They're better in a lot of different areas. They have the better roster, I think. I just Drake May is going to have to be perfect on Sunday, and I think that's a tall order for a team that has struggled to keep him upright. So I'm going on 20 minutes. That's long enough for the Super Bowl. I do want to talk real quick about the Hall of Fame. Uh, Matthew Stafford wins MVP. Okay, so that's kind of surprising. Um, Not just because it felt like things had trended to Drake May recently. I'm glad it went to Stafford because he was more deserving than Drake May, in my opinion. No offense to Drake May, but this is the first time I think since Adrian Peterson won the MVP that the MVP has gone to a team that was a wild card team. So buck the trend by the voters or by the whoever votes on that stuff, writers, whatever. So the 2026 Pro Football Hall of Fame class is pretty ridiculous. Uh, Not that none of these guys are deserving. I think I voted for every single one of them on my blog. Let me pull it up real quick. So the 2026 Pro Football Hall of Fame class is 5 inductees, which is that's mostly what I'm upset about is that there are only 5 inductees. You can do a maximum of 8, and in a year where you had Belichick and Robert Kraft on the ballot as a coach and coach contributor, and then 3 pretty good senior finalists, and you come away with Drew Brees, Larry Fitzgerald, Luke Kuechly, Adam Vinatieri, and Roger Craig. I voted for every single one of these guys on my blog. Drew Brees was a no-brainer in my opinion. Likable guy, has the accolades, has the numbers. I would have been floored, not even shocked, floored if he didn't get in the Hall of Fame this year as a first ballot. And then Larry Fitzgerald, the committee can be fickle with wide receivers. There have only been 6 or 7 to be first ballot. And like the 6 or 7 were one of them was quite the surprise, but like you're talking Jerry Rice, Randy Moss, guys like that. Even T.O. had to wait a couple years. Calvin Johnson was the surprise though. I was pretty floored that he got in because like not only is he, you know, I don't want to say he's not in the same breath as Jerry Rice or Randy Moss. That's not true. But he retired early. Um, but he was obviously deserving of the Hall of Fame. But Larry Fitzgerald, like if you look at his numbers, now he had longevity, but still you can't hold that against him. He ranks in the top 6 in like most of the major categories, statistical categories for a wide receiver. I'm not surprised. I'm glad he got in. I've always liked Larry Fitzgerald, even though he went to Pitt. Uh, Very good pro, likable guy. Played with I think one team his entire career. Um, but a little surprising that he got in as a first ballot, just given the history of the way the committee acts with wide receivers. Luke Kuechly, again, very deserving of the Hall of Fame. One of the best defensive players I've seen uh, in in my lifetime. I mean, one of the best linebackers I've seen in my lifetime. Kuechly, Urlacher. I mean, I can probably think of more. Uh, like those are probably the who Patrick Willis, who got in the Hall of Fame. He's not too different from Patrick Willis. Patrick Willis, stud, but didn't play very long. Retired in 2014, 2015, somewhere in there. Waited 5 years. Obviously had to wait 5 years, and then, but even he waited 2 or 3 years on the ballot. Tony Baselli, another candidate that, like, these are all similar cases, guys who retired early but had incredible short careers. Like Tony Baselli, I think, was all pro 6 of his 7 years, similar to Patrick Willis. And Luke Kuechly, I think, was an all pro every single year. But the committee typically makes guys who retired early wait, which I don't have a huge problem with. But Kuechly was first ballot last year, gets in this year. I've always liked Luke Kuechly. I don't have a problem with it. Just surprising. Normally, those guys have to wait more than 2 years. Adam Vinatieri, more than deserving to be in the Hall of Fame. Unlike some, I will argue for specialists to be in the Hall of Fame, even though I didn't think. I was kind of mixed with Devin Hester. I didn't vote for him on my blog, but I understand the argument to put him in the Hall of Fame. But Adam Vinatieri won 4 Super Bowls. 2 of those Super Bowl wins was like iconic because he kicked the game-winning field goal in those 2 games. I think holds the record for the most career points by a specialist. One of the best to do it. I'm not surprised he got. Well, I'm surprised he got in right now. I figured he would have to wait. And the fact that he had 3 Patriots on the ballot, and the fact that Vinatieri got in before Belichick and Robert Kraft is pretty astounding. But I'm going to argue for Vinatieri. I think he's one of the best to do it. Probably the best kicker to do it. And there's certainly a spot for him in Canton. I just cannot believe that the committee passed on both Bill Belichick and Robert Kraft. I mean, let's go ahead and talk about it. So Robert Kraft, I talked about Belichick last week. Robert Kraft, like I said last week, you could convince me, since the way that the Pro Football Hall of Fame works, you can do a maximum of 8 inductees, and no more than 5 of them can be modern era players. So you could convince me, because you had 3 senior finalists this year who had a good argument to be in the Hall of Fame. You could convince me we only got room for 1 coach or contributor. We're going to give it to Robert Kraft. After all, Robert Kraft bought the team in 1994, bought the New England Patriots in 1994. He's the one who hired Belichick. He's the one who put that front office together, that drafted Tom Brady. The New England dynasty does not happen if not for Robert Kraft buying the team. And the fact that the committee passed on both Robert Kraft and Bill Belichick is absurd. It's absurd. I've never seen such stupidity in my life. Like, what are we doing? When when Schefter put out that report, that Kraft didn't get in, I literally sent in all caps, what are we doing? And I had a buddy of mine from high school say, like, what's next? Is Brady gonna have to wait? And I'm like, exactly. Like, when does it end? Because you've set the precedent that no coach is going to get in the Hall of Fame on the first ballot. If Belichick can't get in first ballot, no other coach should. You've set that precedent. Same with Robert Kraft. So when Brady comes up, are they going to sit there and say, you know what? I don't know, man. Now, I've said some things about Brady, like, James and I have gone back and forth on it. I've always respected Tom Brady. I think he's also been very fortunate in his career, but like, there's no denying the man is the most accomplished player ever, one of the best to ever do it. Should be in Canton. Shouldn't even be a debate whether or not he should be a first ballot Hall of Famer. I remember a report when Peyton Manning got inducted that the committee met for like 11 minutes. Like, might not even have been that long. Like 30 seconds. Like, got him in. No debate. That's what it should have been for Belichick and Kraft, and what should be for Brady. And I think he's 2028 when he's up. So that's my rant. I can't believe Belichick and Kraft didn't get in. So the last inductee here is Roger Craig, running back for the Niners. I think this is deserving. Uh, a pretty good player. His numbers won't pop off at you, but he was ahead of his time. Like he, his numbers, I'd never watched him play. Obviously, way ahead of my time. But his numbers remind me a lot of like Christian McCaffrey. Just made his presence felt in the run and the run through the air. Ranks pretty high up in a lot of categories, like receptions by a running back. Uh, has pretty good numbers, like as a rusher. You know, not Emmett Smith numbers, but ranks in the top. I think 40 or 50 in rushing yards. Like he wasn't unproductive. He won Offensive Player of the Year one year, helped the Niners win 3 Super Bowls. I think that's a very good decision to let him in the Hall of Fame. But this ballot was loaded, and the fact that we only got 5 inductees this year is absurd. Um, I mean, who else is still on the? Let me look at who else is still on the ballot. Then, um, obviously, I know Eli Manning is. Let me pull up my ballot. So Drew Brees got in. Jari Evans. I'm not surprised. Interior offensive linemen. They usually have to wait. Fitzgerald got in. Frank Gore. I'm not surprised, but he should be in the Hall of Fame one day. Torrey Holt. Not surprised. Kuechly was surprising to a point. Not so much that he got in, the fact that he didn't have to wait more than 2 years. Obviously, Eli Manning, everyone's going to argue for Eli Manning. I'm not saying he shouldn't be in the Hall of Fame, but I think it's more of an argument that people think because his numbers just aren't great. And he did. The thing with Eli Manning, while his numbers aren't great, he doesn't have, if you remove the Super Bowls, like a ton of accolades. But like, I'm just not sure you can tell the story of football without Eli Manning. And it's not like he had an unproductive NFL career. But there is the elephant in the room that he really only got hot twice. And I'm not holding that against him, but I think it's fair to not make him a first ballot Hall of Famer. And I like Eli. Who else? Terrell Suggs. I can't believe Terrell Suggs is still waiting. I forgot about that. That's pretty shocking. Ranks. He won a Defensive Player of the Year. He won 2 Super Bowls. He ranks top 10 in NFL history and career sacks. Like I don't know how long the other guys waited. It couldn't have been that long. I think Demarcus Ware waited a couple years, and he's somewhere up there in the top 10. Jared Allen, I think, waited 2 years maybe. But this will be 2 years, at least 2 years for Suggs, and next year will be his third year on the ballot. I mean, pretty surprising for a dude who ranks top 10 in sacks. Vinatieri got in. Reggie Wayne, similar to Torrey Holt. I'm not surprised. Kevin Williams, good player. Might get in one day. I think this was his first appearance on the ballot as a modern era finalist. I forgot about Jason Witten. That's another one. I think the committee messed up there. I mean, he ranks second in league history in career reception and yards by a tight end behind only Tony Gonzalez. And I think Tony Gonzalez was a first ballot Hall of Famer. So I don't know what we're doing there. Darren Woodson, I think should be in the Hall of Fame, but I get not waiting on him. And then Marshall Yonda, similar to Jari Evans, interior offensive linemen just don't get much love. Not surprising. And then the senior finalist, Ken Anderson. I would have been fine if he got in the Hall of Fame. I get not putting him in, though. But he does have an MVP and an Offensive Player of the Year. And wasn't unproductive. Like, the thing with Ken Anderson is, for these senior finalists, you have to remember, like, the eras that they played in. And Ken Anderson has more passing yards than Kenny Stabler, Joe Namath, and Bob Greasy, who are all in the Hall of Fame. So if you're going to let those guys in, I feel like you got to let Ken Anderson in. Just my personal opinion. And then L.C. Greenwood, edge rusher for the Steelers. 78 career sacks, more than teammate Mean Joe Green. Greenwood was also a 4-time Super Bowl champion, 2-time first team All Pro, 6-time Pro Bowler, 1970s All Decade team. Like, what are we doing? Why is this dude not already in the Hall of Fame? In my opinion, played at the exact same time as other guys. Joe Klecko, Mean Joe Green, both of them are in the Hall of Fame. I don't know what we're doing there. I don't know what was with the committee this year. This ballot was loaded. Then I'm here to Belichick and Robert Kraft, and I've already said all I can say about that. Uh, I don't know what we're doing. I think that the committee's got some soul searching to do. It's absurd that there are only 5 inductees this year. There should be 8. There are. I just named off 20 guys. Maybe not quite that many. 18 guys that should be in the Hall of Fame, and you can't whittle that down to 8. It's absurd. All right, I'm gonna leave it there. Everyone stay safe. Super Bowl Sunday. I'm trying to think. I had something I was gonna say. Now I've forgotten it. I'm gonna be hanging out with my buddy Chaz. Um, en- Enjoy the game. Have fun. Don't have too many beers because I think Monday's a work day. Yeah, the next Monday's a holiday. So let's not get too crazy and let's hope for a good game. I'm not so hopeful that that's going to happen, but let's hope for a competitive game because we didn't get it last year. But I'll leave it at that. Later.